Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Forsaken Council. And tonight, I'm really pleased to have a special guest, GD Raiken from Kixeye. So welcome to the show, Raiken. It's great to meet you. And I guess we've got the raid upon us, guys. So we've got a busy show and a busy week in BP again. We've got a new hull and a prize list to discuss, and I think Raiken's also got a few topics that we're gonna go into, and maybe help us understand some of these new items a little bit better, which I know is a bit of an issue for the community at the moment. So thank you very much, Raiken, for taking the time to come on. And I don't know if you wanted to maybe take a bit of time to introduce yourself and maybe say what you do at Kixeye.
Sure. So I'm Raiken. Hi. I'm a game designer at Kixeye. I'm part of the game design team on Battle Pirates. Primarily, I work with systems design, so balancing new prizes or anything like how a system would work, like, oh, here's the leaderboard or that sort of thing. That kind of stuff is what I work with primarily, although I do have a hand in a lot of things, but that's currently my primary responsibility.
That's great. And so guys, I mean, what are we going to talk about tonight? What's on the list? Is there a raid in BP or something? Or
I think so.
Yeah, and I think everyone seems to be quite keen about that. I don't know, Raiken, if you wanted to talk about some of the subjects that you had on your list first, or whether we should go into some slides. So what would be best for you?
Sure. So what I noticed was a lot of people were having questions around the Revenge Hull and the new Gatling gun and kind of how they worked. So I was kind of hoping to clarify any questions you guys might have and kind of go into that a little bit.
Okay. Well, I know Ren's got some questions as well that he was maybe going to do a kind of a little Q&A session with you. Ren, do you have the questions up? Or
No, yeah. I mean, a lot of people have been trying to understand the Gatling gun. I think it's easier if we start there, right? So it's a gun with two modes, a long-range mode that's secondary, and a short-range mode that's primary, so which means whenever it gets in range, in the shorter range of 68, the primary mode takes over. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Then there's some sort of like overload. How do you call that? The stacks. How does that work?
Okay, so the basic way it works is, and this is applied for both modes, and they have different stack counts, but basically every time it fires, regardless of what target it's hitting, every time it fires, it's going to get a stack, right? And that stack goes towards a reload bonus for that weapon itself in that particular mode. So if you fire, I think it's like 27 times, so 27 stacks, then you'll get like plus 400%.
400
bonus.
yes.
Yeah, on that particular mode. Now, if you switch modes, then you theoretically lose those stacks unless you could switch it back in time. So
right. So just to walk through that, so everyone understands. So like primary mode, 68 range, it's the high damage mode, right? So it's going to fire.
I've got the stats up on the screen there as well.
It's going to fire a salvo of 5 projectiles and then 8 seconds reload. Then it fires again. And it's going to reload faster. Fires again, reloads even faster. Yep. After 27 times, it gets to a 400% reload bonus, which means the 8 seconds came down to 1.6 second reload time. Yep. Right? And that's not counting ranking fire bonus, right? Because that stacks.
Exactly.
So pretty much if you get to fire 27 rounds from that weapon in the primary mode, short range, you're going to be pretty much reloading every second.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
That's exactly it.
Now, let's say there's no more targets in the range of 68, nothing to fire at, but there's something, the long-range target of 104, that mode takes over, right, 104, and now it starts firing in a lower damage long-range mode. Same thing repeats, but I think the stacks now are stacks faster, right? I think it's up to 640% stack, so it's going to be a super fast reload, but at a lower damage.
Yep.
Is that right?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
So, how would you use this weapon? I mean, is there some examples of? I'm not asking for build examples, but I mean, from the sounds of it, there's kind of there's a long range use and there's a short range use, and maybe you could mix the two. I mean, is there any insight on that, Raiken?
Yeah. So when we were developing it, there were about 3 different ways we figured out how to use this. So the first one is like the standoff play, right? The long range kind of creep along kind of play. That one requires a pretty high degree of skill because you need to maintain a target in that long range without getting into short range, right? So that it doesn't switch the modes. And you need to maintain it so that there's always a target in that range, because if you don't and you have to like move, then there's a risk that you're going to lose that reload bonus, and then that's pretty punishing because you have to build it back up again. But the benefit, of course, is that 104 range, so you could really like precisely pick off things pretty well. So at the risk of like getting hit by APOC morts and that sort of thing, that anything when you're standing still that you're vulnerable to. But it overall reduces your risk of taking damage because you're not obviously in range of as many things at one time. The second way is to do the blitz approach, right? So you kind of forego that secondary mode, and you say, I'm just going to run through your channel, and I'm going to use my short range thing to try to blow everything up, right? And when you do that, that's great, and you'll definitely dominate stuff, and the walls block some stuff, right? But you risk yourself running into those short-range turrets like the Basilisk or the Gargoyle 2, or anything that you're more susceptible to because you're not thinking about where your position is. You're just trying to kind of click back to the base style, right? So you end up taking more damage in the long run, but it takes less skill. So that's kind of part of the trade-off. And then the final one is kind of the hybriding both of those plays. So you would use the long-range one while not being in the short range to systematically pick off certain targets, right? You're like, I want to kill this particular ship or this particular turret at a longer range. And then,
one question on the long range. Sorry for interrupting, but can I use the long range mode to trigger remote targeting? So can that ship spot at 104 for my Citadels that are behind?
That's a good question. I believe so, but that is a good question. Because the only reason I'm hesitant about that is because I'm not sure how the secondary mode interacts with that. Like if the secondary mode basically detects like, hey, this is a weapon range, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason I'm hesitant about it. Because theoretically, yeah, you're correct. It should work that way, just like any other thing.
It's a surface weapon, right? It goes on the surface slot, so it should. Yeah. That's why I'm asking.
It should. I will look into that, and I'll try to get in some information out to people about that.
Okay.
Okay. Is that fair?
Okay. Just for the community, a reminder, right? The short range mode has a damage of like 2,700 divided by 5, salvo 5, so that means about 520 damage per projectile. You put that on the new hull, you gain a 315% damage. Yeah, 315% damage. Mm-hmm. So what is that, about 1,600 damage per projectile in a salvo 5? So that should overcome any sort of deflection easily, right? And I don't think there's any sort of, like, most ships don't have concussive defense anyways.
Right, yeah.
See, another thing I like about this prize, this blueprint, is I was a little bit apprehensive earlier this evening, but after having a chat with a few people and figuring out a little bit more, and Raiken explaining it a little bit more, I kind of feel quite excited about it, because I kind of feel, because of this first mode, primary mode and secondary mode, I kind of feel like it is giving you strategy, because you have to plan and think. You have to decide, right, am I going to go long range? Am I going to go short range? Am I going to maybe stay at long range to pluck off this bit, and then I'm going to rush past the high damage section of the base, And it kind of does incorporate and bring in that strategy element that I think a lot of us have been crying for a long time. So, I don't think that a lot of people, I think, initially read this and thought, wow, that's really overpowered. But in actual fact, it's not, because if you think about how you're going to incorporate those elements into your base defense, then it's actually not as overpowered as maybe it says on the tin. But if you practice with it and if you use it in the right way, then it can be.
Well, it's actually, I would say it's actually a weak weapon if you put that on any hull but the Revenge, I mean, you put that on any other hull, honestly, it's going to be on primary mode 500 damage per shot, or on secondary mode 350 damage per shot. That's below most ships' deflection, meaning it's going to go down to minimum damage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really not worth it on any other hull. That's how I see it.
And also, in its secondary mode, let's bear in mind that range is the highest range weapon in the game. Am I correct in saying that? In terms of ship weapons. So that actually outranges most of our guards.
It outranges every single one of our guards. Even the Enforcer with the 98 launcher, it's 103. This one is 104, so it's pretty much a tie.
Yeah, it's basically like how skillful are you to play like chicken with the Enforcer, right? Like you got to be on that button, or else you're gonna start getting hit by the Enforcer. So, yeah.
Or you could stick a Revenge in your base guard. You never know.
Yeah, you could do that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that would go for you, but yeah, you could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's very interesting. I mean, do you guys want to maybe go into the hull, or?
Yeah, just before we go there, Lucy, were there any questions from the chat on the weapon?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Is that a no?
One or two.
That's clearly no, right?
Okay, we have quite a lot. I need to scroll all the way up. I need to find them all. There's so many. Well, Doomrooster, come on. He's kind of covered quite a few that's been said. People were kind of not understanding, and he kind of just summarised it by saying the weapon and the hull just work together.
Hi, Doom. Thanks for coming in the chat, Doom. Appreciate that.
Okay. Second mode, blind. There's so many questions. Could someone come and help me?
Anything we didn't address? Because we talked a lot about it. So
covered, because everything that was asked was like before you guys started speaking.
Okay.
So to be honest, okay. There's a question. Does it? No, it doesn't make sense. We're not asked that. No, there's nothing really. Nothing at all.
Look, anything, if there's anything that anyone's really sort of confused about, feel free to post it up on the page.
Everyone's coming up now. Okay, does the primary have the first? Does the primary fire first?
No, I mean the secondary is going to fire first because it's longer range. What happens is, whenever there's a target within the shorter range of 68, primary takes over. Okay, so you're approaching a base. The first building you're gonna get in range is gonna be at 104. So secondary mode starts firing and starts stacking. As soon as you keep moving forward, if you stop there, you're on secondary mode. If you keep moving forward and you get in range of 68 of any target, primary mode takes over. You lose the stack from secondary mode, and now you have primary mode firing and stacking until there's no more buildings left in the shorter range of 68. So if you want to keep that mode stacking, you got to keep moving, so you always have a target within the shorter range, and you don't lose the stack. Does that answer?
It does. It does.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted whoever that was there.
See, sorry. I told you I spent 2 hours understanding that weapon yesterday.
You baby.
There's people mainly asking, oh, here's another one. Does the secondary have a visual range ring?
Good question.
So this is an interesting discussion. So we worked pretty hard to try to show, I think, the maximum range one. We just in coaxial style weapons in general, we actually don't show both ranges, and it's something that we kind of pointed out, like the whole team kind of figured out, oh hey, we need to really start showing this. So it's something that is on our radar, but we're not currently showing both ranges. I think currently we're just showing the longest one, but it's something that we want to address as soon as we can. So
yeah, it's like if you had, say you had a siege cannon and a mortar, it would show your range for the mortar. It wouldn't show. Right. It's just exactly the same principle as what you're saying.
So we're going to see the 104 range. Okay.
Yeah.
You should be seeing the 104 range.
Okay, let's move on to the ship then.
Okay.
Yes, the ship. the ship. The ship to rule them all. Have you got a slide there, Lucy, or?
You guys have me done so much tonight. I'm not used to this.
You just want me to freestyle it? This is the ship. It's called the Revenge.
Am I screen sharing? Yeah, I'm okay. There you go.
Somebody did a good job there on the slide. Was that Andrew? Looks great.
Andrew,
I thought it was you.
No, I didn't put a nice picture like that. That was him.
Andrew, can I give credit to Andrew quickly? Andrew has done the slides tonight, as well as Ren's done some, and he's also split the raid prizes into like an easy to look at table. So kudos,
Awesome.
Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
So yeah, let's talk about the ship, Liam.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting ship. I mean,
It's
what
pretty.
strikes... Well, yeah, it's very pretty, actually.
Yeah.
I wasn't keen on it at first, but now that I've seen it, I like it. I do like it.
So I think we should do the same scenario-based thing, right? Because that's how I understood the ship. I'll give an example, right? How much damage does a blade missile does? 1,000? 1,100?
1,200, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, 1,200, right? So let's say you have a guard ship on your base with a blade doing 1,200 plus 45% because you have a special. So now you're at close to 1,800. Okay, let's keep it 1,800. You fire a blade at this ship, 1,800 incoming damage. It has a minus 60% penetrating defense. So now, minus 60, you go from 1,800, you apply 60% negative. So that's what? 1,000. So now your blade is doing 2,800 damage, one of them, to that ship. 2,800 damage, you subtract 400 assault deflection. So from 2,800, you're at 2,400 now. And then it has a plus 2,110 penetrative deflection. How do I say that? Fuck.
Penetrative.
So yeah, so now from the 2,400 left, after the base assault deflection, I subtract 2,100, so the blade's doing 300 damage to that ship. Is that right, Raiken?
Yep, so basically all the resistances, just kind of like what you walked through, all the resistances are applied first, right? And then all the deflection stuff is applied last, right? And then
so does that mean the Rhino I've got in my base with Harriers now needs to be refit to blades to be relevant?
Well, no,
would say
technically
so.
it would actually still be better with the missiles we're using. Well, I'm using the same Rhino's gadget, and we're using
No. The Harrier's going to be worse.
The Harrier
Harrier's
will
going
be
to be way
worse.
worse.
The Harrier's strength is the bypass, and if you're facing a high deflection, low resistance hull, bypass is useless.
Right.
And the base damage on the Harrier is much lower. It's only a few hundred. So
Yes,
now
it is.
you're
Way
going to be
lower.
down to minimum damage, right? So pretty much lesson here is if you want to counter that hull, the weapons in your base guard, the ships, the weapons have to be very high damage per salvo, per shot.
Well, it takes a lot. It takes some thought to work this out as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Dave, Gadget, didn't you say to me earlier that we were looking at UAV, the bomber UAV, and was it 3,500 damage, Gadget?
No,
I think it was the airstrike.
Yeah, the airstrike UAV. If you have the specials at R15 and that, you can take it to 3,707 damage per UAV, and it's a single shot, so it's not getting split between any salvo. But the problem with it is the 98 range. So this ship's going to have to come into range of it for it to really be effective. But it should be quite effective if the ship does come into range of your carrier before it kills it.
Well, see,
By the way, sorry, on Gadget's comment, I think the ship will have to come into range because that long range will have to pass through multiple layers of walls. It's going to take forever. So if they just sit there trying to get through the wall, I would hope your executioners and your APOCs will just give it a beating, right? It has to move.
So it doesn't, and that's another interesting point there. It doesn't fire over walls.
Nope. Right, Raiken?
correct, yeah, the walls will block it.
Okay, there you go.
That's a good bit of information there, which I think not everyone may have thought of. See, when I looked at this whole initially, I calculated these stats, and I kind of felt that almost every weapon on our guards would be doing minimum damage, but actually, calculating it the way you just did there, Ren, I guess I'm wrong. And
yeah, no, I think based on, like, Gadget did the math for the airstrike UAV, I did the math for blade and judgment mortars, I think these 3 weapons are the 3 weapons that can still do above minimum damage to that ship.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
The other great option, all the corrosive turrets. Right. They all have a range of 105 or more. The ship has no additional corrosive deflection. So let's run through that again. I mean, you get the Basilisk. It's 1,000 damage, right? Per salvo. So 1,000 minus 600 siege deflection, 400 damage getting through, and that's it. Unless you put siege battery on that ship, then you gain 40% resistance. Now it's 1,000 minus 40%, you're at 600, minus 600 siege deflection, and you're at 0. So you're going to be taking some minimum damage there, I suppose.
Holy maths.
Well, it's weakness. Raiken said to me prior to the show. I mean, this hull's weakness is radioactive, concussive, and corrosive. It has no deflection stats for them. I see enforcers coming back. I mean, I haven't had an enforcer in my base in some time, but now I kind of really regret scrapping it, and I'm going to have to rebuild that now. So.
The other thing to consider, right, and I'm trying to keep it simple, and that's probably going to be my last comment because I got to go, but the glacial turret. The glacial turret has an effect that brings you down from like -9 all the way down to -90% resistance. So my question to Raiken, because I couldn't figure that one out. The ship has 70% field resistance. So from -90% loss in combat speed and resistances and everything, you subtract 70%. So, instead of having -90%, I'm only at -27%, because that's the 30% left. How do I stack -27% resistance on -60? Is it going to go straight to -87? Do I just add it up?
I think it should be multiplicative if I remember correctly. So you would, it's I don't want to give them math lessons, but basically it should be multiplicative so that you basically get a diminishing return effect on it. So, as an example, if it were at 50% and I said, oh, here's 70% extra, then it ends up at I think 65%.
Can I interrupt really quickly? Laredo posted on he said he has information. He says, Gatling, I can't pronounce it, secondary will not trigger RTR.
Okay, great.
No, that sucks.
Not trigger.
Well, does it though? I don't know. I mean, would that be a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it would be a good thing.
This is confirmed by Laredo. I can never pronounce it right.
It would really make them a lot. It would really make me not want to put one in my base guard. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I think it should, because if we're only seeing the ring of max range and it's a surface weapon and that's its first range, I mean, honestly, logically, it should trigger remote targeting. I'm disappointed if it doesn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. I think the rule set actually dictates it would probably trigger off the primary, right? The primary is the override, right? It's the thing that takes over, and therefore the primary has the weight to functionality, right? And that's why I was hesitant in saying that the secondary was going to proc on it, because that's what I figured.
So another question, sorry, on the resistance still. I mean, it's -60%. Let's say I put heavy plating. Heavy plating at R15, it's 55% boost on resistance. So on a ship that has 0% resistance, I add 55, it brings it up to 55% resistance. On a ship that has 20% already, it's 55 of the 80% left, which is about 40-something, so that ship's going to go to 60-something% resistance. Now that I'm at -60, so I was confused if I should just say -60 plus 55, it's going to be at -5, or if I do multiplicative, I should say it's -160 times 55, that's about 85, so now it's going to go from -65 to +25. Which one is it?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I feel like the answer should be multiplicative based on my interaction with all the resistance stats and how those work. That's just usually kind of a fallback safety. And for reference to realize that while I do a lot of the math crunch too, when we balance stuff, I'm looking at tangible results, right? So the numbers that we produce are based on a series of testings and circumstances and things and the results that we want to happen, and that's how we end up getting those numbers. And then we use math to refine them down more specifically. So when it's harder for me to give a direct math answer because one, I don't have the math in front of me to help calculate all that stuff. The things that we're looking at is this the result that we want, and making sure that the numbers are allowing for that result to happen, right? And that's what we're more focused on when we're balancing things.
So do you mind if we bring out that blueprint again, Lucy? Would you like to maybe take some time to talk about the hull yourself, Raiken, and maybe like the idea behind it and stuff? And
Sure. Yeah, I can talk about the function. So basically, the revenge hull is kind of a unique thing about, when it kills something, it gets stronger, right, fundamentally. And when I say it kills something, to be more explicit, if it's a ship, a turret, or a structure, or a building, then it'll get those benefits. It'll get a stack. Mm-hmm. Drones, walls, that sort of stuff, not going to count towards it. So basically, each time you kill something, you get a stack, and that stack is shared with all things that have the revenge bloodthirst ability, right? In other words, all of the revenges are going to get a stack anytime a revenge ship kills something, right? So they all work together. It's like an assist mechanic, right? They all assist each other.
Do they stack up though?
They all increase at the same rate.
So, but they increase at the same time, but they don't multiply. They don't stack. So let's say where is it?
No, it does. It does stack, does it not?
No, I understood that they all gain at the same time.
Max stats 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 20 per ship, or is it 20 for the fleet?
No, it's 20 per ship. So they each will get that benefit. It's not like a fleet-wide thing. It's like each ship will get that benefit.
But you said all ships will stack up together. So if one of them gains, okay.
Right, because they're assisting each other, right? Like imagine if there was another thing called Bloodthirst Immortal ship or whatever, right? And the Bloodthirst Immortal killed something, Bloodthirst Revenge wouldn't get a stack, but all the Bloodthirst Immortal ships would, right? So that's the separation there.
If I have let's say a Frosty on that fleet, along with 4 of these boats, these ships, their ability, it's Cold Snap immune.
Yes.
Will they turn the Frosty immune to the Cold Snap, or is the Cold Snap still going to affect the Frosty?
The Cold Snap will still affect the Frosty.
Every other ship but this one.
Right. It's self-contained. It's a instance of that ship.
Okay.
Like the Centurion.
Okay, so I just have to say bye. I gotta go. Thanks, Raiken and Liam and everyone. Take care, guys. Lucy, Gadget.
Oh, bye, Ren.
Oh, Ren.
I'm so emotional. Bye, Ren.
So if you used it with, say, an overload hull, like a Grimshine's Wrath or a Grimshine's Berserker, and you kept the overload hull out of range of the cold snap, and you let this new hull get in range of the cold snap, and you let the Apox hit the overload hull, they would still overload.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it would work as it always has previously. I mean, that was a heavy 25 minutes of maths there from Like I almost feel like I need a break there.
I know. Well, I feel bad because I don't have all the math in front of me, so I can't just do it.
I swear my brain just went poof, and I was sitting and I was like, whoa.
I don't think a maths professor would have all the maths in front of him there. But, I guess you had some questions that you wanted to roll off while he had the chance to, which is great. So cheers for doing your best on them, Raiken. Yeah. So yeah, I mean I really like this hull, and I think that the special abilities is the overlooked part. I don't see many people talking about that at the moment. I mean, the siege deflection of plus 360 and when you know the other resistances in there. I mean, when they start stacking up, that's really going to be quite a brutal fleet. And considering most people have 10 to 15 buildings in their bubble pad entrance, I know I do for one. I have like 6 turrets up front now as well. This thing's going to be stacked and boosted before it even enters your sort of critical damage area of your base. It's almost going to make you want to pull that bubble pad back a little bit, I think, you know.
Well, that was the interesting part, right? Because now you have an interesting decision to make, right? Like this is the thing, like I'm always harping on about, right? It's like I want people to make interesting decisions about the way they play the game because it's a strategy game, right? And so the only way that occurs is if there's interesting decisions on both the attacker side and the defender side. So in this case, it's an interesting decision in the sense that you can forego part of your bubble pad, right? Like that's a completely valid decision, in lieu of like making it weaker in the early part of the combat, right? Which is actually a really smart strategy because that is when it's most vulnerable, right? But you risk people like multi-hitting you or whatever to cause more damage to your base. So that's like your trade-off, right? So if you're comfortable with your base being like, yeah, no one's gonna crack it, good luck, then yeah, pull your bubble pad back and let the revenge suffer from not being able to get early stacks on, right? But if you don't believe that, or you want to be safe about it, then put it up front and deal with the revenge having that extra like 10 to 14 stacks walking into your channel, right? It's the same reason we designed the Gatling gun the way we did, right? Because I was always like, man, as an attacker, it really sucks when I come into a base and I'm like, oh man, I don't have anything for this, right? Like I can't even tactically do something. I have to pull the ship out and like put in something, get a new fleet, put them back in, or maybe I don't have one and I can't even hit. Whereas this one's like, hey, no, like, okay, they're set up for anti-blitzing, but I have this long-range thing. If I can skill it enough, maybe I can make that decision instead, even if I'm not optimally built to handle everything in here, right? And so now you're not like screwed as an attacker and being like, oh, can't do anything, that sucks, can't hit this guy, right? Like that's really unfortunate. So I really like the coaxial weapons because of that, because it gives you that interesting decision.
Yeah, and I think it gives it a sense of versatility. Like, it's not kind of one thing that just does one sole thing. You can actually use the bow and the weapon in three or four different ways. You know, and
exactly.
even develop your own playing style with it. And I think that's a great thing for it too, is that versatility. Yep. Because you know, there is some people that just enjoy blitzing. They just enjoy clicking the back of the base, right. And then there's some people that like to take a slow approach. You know, so and this whole sort of this whole weapon kind of tailors to both of those needs.
Exactly. Yeah, especially with like the first like PvP defined hull, I really wanted to like people who you know are you have different play styles be able to all be like, yes, this is a good PvP hull, and I can use it in the way that I want to play it, right? Especially with the first one. And as we add more, obviously we'll have more specialized one way or the other. But for this first one, I really wanted to add something that most people felt comfortable using.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we've had a good chunk of time there talking about the hull and weapon, and you know, if there is anything we didn't cover, be sure to post it in the page, and myself and the other admins, and we'll try our best to explain some of the stuff that was covered in the show. And anything we can't answer, I'm sure Raiken will help me out and help us out in explaining. But was there some subjects, Raiken, that you wanted to move on to? I know you had a few things you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some target changes we're going to be doing. I know, like, in my post I said, hey, I want to be more upfront with the community about things that we're going to be doing and more public about it as soon as we can. As part of that, I wanted to talk about what those target changes are going to look like. And I'll be making a post that'll follow up on a lot of this stuff anyway, so, like, you don't have to, like, remember everything. But the important part about this is, you know, one initiative we're really looking at trying to do is increasing, you know, moving forward and kind of in the long term, we have so that you get a greater return on investment, a greater ROI on the ships that you build, right? Like people in the past have always said, oh, my ship got invalidated, you know, it's too soon for this new one that it has better stats or whatever. So we really spent a lot of time coming up with a holistic design plan about targets and release cadence for certain types of ships and weapons and that sort of thing. So kind of keeping that in mind, what we noticed is that when you go into a raid, you usually will use, like, you'll build a ship for it, right? In the long term over a raid cycle, right, like 3 or 4 months, you'll build a ship that try to optimize your return on it, right? Like, so you're not taking as much damage and you're getting more points and that sort of thing. And when the raid is over and that whole cycle goes away,
the fleet's kind of
it's right. Yeah, it's like it doesn't do anything now, and so you have to refit it and do all these wonderful things that I'm sure you guys love doing. So the thing that we're doing is we're going to start taking raid targets and we're going to start putting them into the world.
Right.
So the important part to that is, and this is the big first move and the biggest move that we're going to have to make in order for this to work, is we're going to take the existing raid cycle, so the targets you're going to be fighting this raid, we're going to be making tweaks so that, because we recognize there's half repair on and that sort of stuff, but basically we're going to drop them and replace all the FM targets for all the different levels. So this way, any raid hull that you were using that were like, oh, this is really effective or whatever, you can take that fleet and use them now in the FM and continue, getting benefit for that investment, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll work on how often we update those and so on and so forth. And not all event targets will become FM targets. This is just the first one that we're doing. Some might go into like sector threat on like orange and yellow or whatever, right? We'll add stuff there or in some capacity put them out in the world so that, again, your builds are valuable and you can continue to use them to gain benefits in other aspects of the game outside of just the raid.
Well, I personally think that that's a great thing. I personally do tailor fleets to raids. I've tailored, as you know, I've actually tailored a Citadel fleet to this raid, and I have a Rhino fleet that's pretty much tailored to it. So,
my Rhinos.
So, yeah, Lucy's finally built her Rhinos as well.
I'm excited about my Rhinos. Why are you doing this to me?
No. So what Raiken's saying there, Lucy, is that they're going to take the raid targets and they're going to move them into the weekly Forsaken missions.
Dude, have you seen me try to do a raid target?
Lucy, I've seen you try to do a weekly Forsaken mission as it is.
Oh no, I've tried to do lots of things and they don't work out very well for me.
No, but I think that's a great thing, because I think what that also does there is that adds a longer shelf life to that hull. Too fast, and I know this is something you talked about, so I just thought I'd highlight it. I know you talked about this a while back in your post in the forum, but too often we've seen previously in the game where a hull comes out and then a couple of months later it's gone, and nothing happens with it. And now what you're talking about there, my Citadels are going to last for, not only have they lasted for 3 months, but they're going to last me for another 3 months and maybe even longer, which is great for me, because that's financially beneficial for me as well.
Yep. Well, exactly. Like I want you guys to feel comfortable building ships safely. In the long term, feel safely building ships and feeling like, yes, I'm going to get an ROI on this investment, right? For my time in the game, right? Mm-hmm. Now, something that the whole team kind of keyed in on, and we're kind of rallied against, because we're like, we need to fix this. So that is the goal that we're working towards. And this is the first step in that process.
That's great.
Yep. So the only other target change that I will mention is I noticed some people were saying, oh, well, the Revenge is going to be a great PvE hull, and even though it can do PvP or whatever. So up front, it will be. But when we're going to plan to do, I think, pretty quickly here, probably at the beginning of May sometime, we're going to do a global target update where we're going to be introducing basically a stat from our side called basically like it's deflection bypass. So instead of like ramping up the damage like I kind of suggested in the post, we found that like, oh, we have to increase the health now of all the other PvE ships, and that's going to affect repair and build times and all that wonderful stuff. And we're like, no. We're going to add deflection bypass instead, so that it mitigates all that deflection, and that'll kill off all the PvP hulls basically entering in, because now they have no resistances or very low resistances, and so now they're more vulnerable. And so we'll be adding those to basically all the targets. And once we do that, that'll create the clean divide between PvE and PvP, like we've talked about, right? Because we did the first step on the PvP side. We're going to fix the PvE side now, and then once we do that, we'll be set.
Do you know? See, to me though, what I hear there, right, is that that's going to work against my current PvE holes, right? Like once when you drop this change into the game, I then went and spent money refitting my Punishers to make them my PvE hole that I'm going to do all my stuff with. And if they've got 500 deflection. So if you've got deflection bypass in there, it's going to bypass their deflection and make them far, far less effective. Which then means I'm looking at having to build a whole new fleet of something new that comes out to be able to do my PvE.
Right. So that's fair criticism. The thing that we're looking at, right, is in PvE, deflection's going to have ultimately less impact, right, than the resistances. So having 80-ish% resistances for the particular damage type of that target is the most ideal situation, right? Now, when we go and make this change, we'll be looking at the expected ships to be viable in those targets, and we'll look at the Punisher and that sort of stuff to make sure that it continues to be in line with where the current level of damage and stuff you're taking is now. Our goal is simply to separate out so that if you try to bring like the Revenge into a PvE target, it's not going to perform to the same levels as like a PvE hull that's designed to take on that target, right? That's ultimately the goal that we're doing.
So what you're saying is, for example, in Dave's case, he won't probably notice a difference by the time you've done.
That's the goal, right? Like that's what we're going to be focusing our time on when we really go in and add the stat, is to make sure that you guys are still taking about the same amount. I mean, the intent is not to like screw you guys over and then be like, haha, look, you take more damage. Like that's not really the goal, right? Our goal is simply to separate out the two, and this is the best way that we can do it.
Do you know, it was funny is so someone did just bring this comment up about a week ago on our page, and I think the BP professor was in there talking about it, and we were talking about how we thought you guys were going to do the divide, to draw the line out, and I actually put a comment on there saying I wonder if they're going to introduce deflection bypass. And I think the professor replied saying, nah, they won't do that. That's silly. But, I was right. No. I called it, so I was lucky on it.
I mean, yeah, it was certainly a conversation that we had, right? It was just we were thinking about the long-term scale, right? And if we really amped all the damage to, like, the ridiculous numbers that we would, then, like, we would have to somehow amp all the health of all the PvE hulls so they can just survive part of that hit, right? And that would just scale over time, and then you guys would be like, oh, well, the repair times are increasing gradually over time. We don't like that. We gotta lower them, that sort of stuff. So in order to avoid that situation entirely, we're like, okay, we're going to introduce deflection bypass, and that's a safer approach. So.
Well, yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm glad that you picked up on the topic, because one thing that myself and Gadget and Lucy said earlier when we seen the stats on the Revenge was, the first thing we all said was that this hull was not just going to be PvP. This hull was going to be the best PvE hull as well. Stick a PvE build on that with those kind of stats. It's gonna be your best hull there too. So I'm glad that that we now can see, I can almost see the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to that line, that divide, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just a multi-step process, right? There's a lot of work that involves, basically, because we're basically revamping the game in a lot of ways, right? And that's a huge undertaking. Mm-hmm. So in order to do all that, like, we have to do like this bit here and this bit here, and in order to really get everything working. So like in the interim, right? Yeah, like feel free. Like if you build the Revenge before the beginning of May and you want to go out and hit PvE targets, feel free. You'll get a great return on that, but just realize that the moment that targets get updated, it's not going to be that way. So fair warning.
Yeah. Okay, that's great, and thanks for sharing that information. We've had a couple of great bits of information already. Was there any more, Raiken, that you wanted to cover?
So with the so that's all for the target stuff. Again, I'll be making a post. I'll go into a little more detail on some of this stuff. Just trying to write it all out. I'm still in the middle of it. It's quite a lengthy post, as you guys are familiar with. With the next thing that I wanted to kind of let everyone know is that there's going to be a preview server tomorrow at 12:30, and I think it goes till 3, and that is to preview the Revenge and the Gatling guns, so that you guys can kind of see it firsthand.
Yeah. Raiken, come on now. Ask the Kickside gods. Doom Rooster, I know you're watching. Make it happen. Get me in that preview. I want to be in this one, okay? So make it happen.
Yeah, or he'll rage again, and watching him rage is hilarious.
I don't rage. I never rage.
I just watched you do a wee fifth pump. That was really funny, Liam. You're like fist pumping.
Yeah, no, it's. I do enjoy the previews. I do enjoy the streams as well because they're a lot of laughs.
So what time etc. will the preview server be going up?
So it's gonna start probably at 12:30. Pacific Standard Time, Daylight Time, Kickside time, whatever floats your boat. So
8 p.m. our time, Lucy. 8 p.m.
Yeah.
That's past my bedtime.
Sorry, Raiken, did I interrupt you there?
No, and then it goes till 3. So.
Okay, cool.
That's great. So, I mean, it's a bit. I was a bit surprised by that to see you guys do a preview the day before the raid. Was it? Normally it's not. Do you normally do that or?
So we felt that. So normally we try to do previews. It doesn't always work out because it's a lot of setup from our side of things. But in this case, we were thinking that, the Revenge and the Gatling gun have a lot of questions, speculations about it, how does it work? And I think so one of the best ways that we can help you guys do that is kind of have people experience using it and having people, share about their experience using it and how does that work and, is it worth it, is it not, whatever. So, so this is a good way for us to kind of allow for that without it affecting, like, the game directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, that's great. And do you mind if I don't know how you are you okay for time, Raiken, or?
Yeah, I got like 15-ish minutes.
I was wondering if maybe I could ask you a couple of questions.
Oh God. Okay.
Firstly, how do Kickside feel about my hair? No, I'm just kidding. That's not the real question. I wanted to ask you about this new feature that's coming, and I cannot believe it, but on the spur of the moment here, I forgot the name of it. It's the new you'll think of the name before I do, but it's your new function to develop holes and stuff.
Yeah, the Foundry.
The Foundry. Sorry, Raiken, it is the Foundry. I don't know if you're in a position where you can or can't talk about it, and if not, then that's fine. But I know it's something everyone's really interested in. So
sure, yeah. So I can talk a little bit about it on a high level, just so that we don't have to go into a whole bunch of details. But it's coming out pretty soon. But basically, the Foundry is just a catch-up mechanic, effectively, for players who have kind of fallen out of the game and came back, or fell behind, or that sort of thing, in terms of like trying to get them back into the swing of things with the raid, with the FM, that sort of stuff. So the way it's going to work is all the existing targets on the map, so no new targets, no new targets. All the existing targets on the map will start dropping like fragment pieces of a particular hull that's in the Foundry that you can craft. And basically, once you collect enough of them, you unlock the hull for as a blueprint. So you'll have it, and then we'll be updating the retrofit lab to kind of allow you to upgrade them a little further, so that you can get them up to speed. And so we'll be just like very intentionally dropping certain hulls into the Foundry over time, so that as we switch the world map targets and that sort of stuff, like we talked about earlier, there will be a hull in there that will allow you to be successful in that particular category.
So, like making the tech available for players to be able to do the content in the game.
Exactly, which is something we've been really lacking, and since the progress and trying to get back into things, we realized that was quite a bit of struggle. So we really focused in on trying to address that with this particular feature.
That's fantastic. I think that's a great idea. That would really help you, Lucy, as well, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You're not even paying attention, are you?
I was too busy looking at the chat, like everyone keeps saying things, and I'm like, oh my god. Sorry, guys. What were we saying?
Never mind. The other question, if you didn't mind, Raiken, small one really. It was I was kind of expecting another reduction. I know for the last couple of raids, the last 2 months, you did like a sweep through of reductions on like the build times of specials and armors related to the tech available that raid. I know that this raid it's kind of a little bit different with the tech we're getting, but I almost did expect a little sweep through. Is that not going to be ongoing anymore, or?
It's kind of as you noted, right? It's a different event, and we kind of with the Hullstore and that sort of thing, and the things that we anticipated you needing for this particular raid cycle, we feel we've addressed for the most part. As far as those particular times, so we didn't really do a whole lot this time as a result. Not to say that we won't do it in the future. Like we'll probably reevaluate it in the next cycle, but we kind of evaluate it kind of on a cycle basis and when we need to introduce that stuff. And in this particular case, we felt like okay, we've addressed what they needed to have for this particular raid cycle. So we'll keep everything where it's at status quo right now, and then we'll revisit it again next month. Right.
Well, that's great. I kind of expected that because with the hole that we have now, it's kind of there's nothing like it's not specific to needing a specific armor. It's not. It's very In fact, I don't even know how I'm going to build mine at the moment. So
it's part of the fun.
Yeah. Dave, Gadget, was there anything you wanted to say, David?
No, not really, mate. I think we covered it all. Really?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's been absolutely great having you on the show, Raiken, and I really wanted to say thank you for having you on the show. I don't know if Lucy, do you want to bring up the prize list slides? We still haven't done that yet. We've been talking about so much.
A lot of people have been asking about the Man of War. How?
The Man of War. Okay.
Man of War. It's not all.
Specifically asking.
I don't know. They're just asking about it. So. We're just saying to go over it. It was quite a while ago, though.
Bring up the prize list slides, and we'll maybe do a rundown on what would be a good thing for people to choose. That would be advisable, wouldn't it?
Also, while I'm bringing that up, a lot of people are quite concerned about. You first of all mentioned about the weeklies are be changing. A lot of people are concerned about that, especially for lower levels. For me especially, like. I can't do the raid. Like it is difficult with the target. So will we be introducing not just the raid targets, but will there be different levels or?
Yeah. So we're gonna clean sweep out. So there's the steps. So we're gonna clean sweep out all the existing FM targets. We're gonna replace it with all the different levels for the event, right? So all the C, B, A sets, that sort of stuff. We're gonna.
Will they be capped? Like how everything else has been capped, will they be capped too based on level?
It's gonna function the same way as the existing FM. We're just gonna replace the targets. Okay. So the thing, the catch-up part, the part where like, oh, I can't do it. That's where the Foundry kicked in, right? So once we release the Foundry, which we'll be releasing shortly, you'll be able to basically earn the prints that you need in order to be successful in the FM, right? And that's how it really should be, right? It's like, here's the beginning of the game, here's where you can catch up or whatever, or you're a low level player, you get the thing you need that allows you to do the FM, and then you can get prizes from the FM that you can then use to help do the raid, right?
Will you be cleaning out all the FM prizes that are currently there just now? And introducing new ones, or will they still roll over?
So we'll definitely be doing some prize adjustments for the FM starting in May. The goal here will be that we have things that you kind of need to do. They'll live in part of the FM, right? So like you may require like Speed System 4 or something, right?
Glacial turret.
Yeah, well, no, you won't. No, but if you need like Speed System 4 in order to unlock this blueprint, and let's say that's like in Tier 1 or whatever, if you can go to the FM, get that thing, grind it out, get the low level thing, and then that'll apply for you, right? So you'll kind of build everything together.
But the system itself that we have for Forsaken missions, that's not changing. It's just the targets we're hitting. That's what you're saying.
Right, that and the prize layout and distribution, so that we can help make sure that that's facilitated, right? And we'll still add new stuff for those who are excited. Like there'll still be a rotating wheel of stuff that we'll do, but in general, there'll be more static kind of prizes that you need in order to help you along in the Foundry.
Right. Okay.
And another thing Raiken said, Lucy, before when he mentioned it was that he's obviously aware that during the raid there's like a 50% repair modifier.
Yes.
And the targets will be changed to reflect that.
Right.
So
okay.
It's not going to like cost you double the amount.
Right.
I think as soon as that was said, like as soon as you guys said the raid will like kind of be like the weekly, like the targets will come. Like you should have seen comms. Wow. It was insane. I don't think people can understand. People just automatically thought, "Whoa, okay." But I'm quickly going to go on to this prize list. Sorry for gabbling.
It's okay.
Yeah, no, we're not trying to like incur more damage to people, right? Like we're just trying to make sure that there's like an actual return on investment for the hulls that you're building, right? And that's the goal with that. So.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Okay, so guys, I know we've spent a long time. We haven't really had a chance to get into the raid too much, so we will do our best to try and run over it quickly. The prize list and all the information has already been posted in the forum, and Doom's put up some information regarding that. There was also an interesting update regarding the firefield resistances. I wasn't 100% sure I understood that, Raiken, but there was something about them not being displayed correctly. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically the firefield resist stat was displaying the inverse, which was interesting. So like if it said 10%, it actually meant 90 or vice versa. And we're like, okay, well that's really confusing and complicated, and it's only for fire, field, whatever. And so we're like, okay, look, we're just gonna pull that stat out of the game, and we're gonna introduce this new stat called field resistance that applies more globally, right? Like cryo and the napalm and all those fields, right? It'll apply for that, and we'll make sure and we'll adjust all the stuff so that it shows the correct stat and applies it correctly, right? And makes it very clean and simple, because it was too complicated to be like, okay, great, well now we're gonna have to change everything and it'll look like a nerf and there's a whole bunch of problems there, and we're like, look, that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna recalculate this and make sure that it's actually correct for players. And so you shouldn't see any changes at all. As far as like your performance, right? It's simply we're like, hey, here's this new stat and it's now correct. We promise, right? Like that's really what it was.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, I know that whenever the community think a nerf's coming, they kind of everything just goes, all hell breaks loose, But
you start raging.
Okay, so tier 1. I wasn't sure either. Can you have 2 prizes per tier, or is it unlimited this time? I haven't actually had a chance to check that yet.
I'm less familiar with the side of things. I help pick the prizes, but I don't remember the format in this case. My apologies.
Okay. No worries. Maybe someone could confirm in the YouTube chat, and Lucy can shout out.
All I'm seeing is Doomrooster shouting nerf.
Nerf. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. What does he want me to look at? Sorry. He says no, it's unlimited, Liam.
Unlimited this time. Okay, that's great, because I know last time people were going mental about the one prize per tier last time. So tier 1, DNX is in there again, which is a great grab for any low levels, I think, and an easy grab too. 150k is not a lot.
Yeah, it's cheap.
What else would you pick though if you were in that bracket? Do you think the Triton's a good pick, Lucy, or? Definitely,
Triton's really good. I remember having them, and Mercury as well. Remember you done that video of like different Mercury builds when they first came out?
God, that was years ago. That was a good
Mercury, everything there's good. For someone, it's just that's all they can get. They can adapt that and use it for their weeklies, etc. So yeah, they're good, and good amounts as well for them. They're cheap.
Yeah, I mean D3E in there as well. I think that's a very good one.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
In tier 1. Feel free to throw in an opinion, Raiken or Gadget, or whoever. As you go.
My opinion doesn't matter. I'm Kickside, right?
Of course your opinion matters. Of course your opinion matters.
Gadget's very quiet.
I look at the raid and I just see it as being a very cheap raid for me.
Well, that's because you've got everything. I've got everything too.
So there's very little I need to worry about.
But what about other players, Gadget?
Yeah, Gadget.
Oh, you're
God,
asking me to think from a point of view that I can't understand because I'm not that level in the game, right? Do you know what I mean?
You just insulted me, Gadget. You insulted me.
Well, the master, I would say in tier 2. Sorry, Raiken, were you going to go in with something there?
I don't see anything there to me that's a priority. I think if you were looking at a priority hull, you'd be looking at one of the deflection hulls really, so that you can set yourself up for the PvE stuff that's going on in the game.
Yeah. So I'll give whatever opinion this means to people. So with the DNX, we did test the low level event targets using the DNX. So what does that mean? That means if DNX is only the best thing that you can really get or afford, pick that up because it's going to help with when the targets rotate into the FM. If you have the DNX and you have it built, you should be able to do it at a reasonable cost. So that would be my recommendation personally. But again, like that's just me. So.
Especially when we get those crazy R10 DNXs that were in the campaign.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Don't even mention the campaign.
It was brilliant. Okay. Tier 2.
Yep.
Mastodons.
That is amazing.
I know. I thought that as well. I mean, a lot of people might say they're irrelevant now, but that was the first remote targeting hole in the game.
Mm-hmm. And they're awesome. I mean, if you manage to get yourself a good tank and you put them behind, then will that work? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, of course, and still a great PvE hole too. In the current PvE.
No.
What do you mean no?
I don't know. It's not very adaptable. There's only so much you can do with it, and even with armor, they're pretty rubbish. But for someone hitting, like, say, a level 40's hitting a little base or something, then yeah, they're good.
Okay. The UAV power cell. Would you recommend that anyone or? I mean, if I was picking from tier 2, and I didn't have anything there, I would pick Mastodon and UAV power cell for sure.
I'd pick Siege Battery.
If tier 2 was all I could get, I'd pick Siege Battery. But if I knew I could get Siege Battery free, then I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'd recommend like lower people to try and get the hulls, and in tier 1 the D3E armor, and in tier 2 the Siege Battery free.
What do you think, Raiken?
Yep. I mean, that's obviously a very good haul, right? I mean, we put it in there because it is a good haul, right? I think it is kind of important, though. I think Lucy's right in picking up that if you don't have a Siege Battery and you don't feel comfortable getting the Siege Battery 3, definitely pick up Siege Battery because it's going to help you with kind of the way things are with the drop mining bases and the new event/FM targets, right? Like those are going to matter. Right. So anything that's reducing the turret damage is probably good. So those would be my high level recommendations.
Definitely. Yep, that's great, solid advice there. Have we got the next one, Lucy, or?
Oh wait, yeah.
How far are you going?
Sorry, my finger slipped.
Okay. Tier 3 is interesting again. The Rhino is making another appearance there, which I kind of feel the Rhino's just been thrown at us so many times recently, but this is like the cheapest it's been.
It makes me so angry because last raid I spent so many points to get the Rhino, and then look how cheap it is.
You didn't spend any points. It was 7 million, and you had your points done for you. The bomber UAV as well is brilliant to see that in there.
Evade upgrade.
If I was picking, I would probably, if I could only grab 2 things there, I would take Siege Battery free and the bomber UAV for sure.
See, I'd rather see the airstrike UAV in there than the bomber, given the new hull that's just come out. I think it's much more relevant.
But that's probably why it's not in there.
Well, no. The reason it's not in there is because it's currently in the FM, and so we didn't want to conflict those two as much as possible, so we tried to separate that out.
Okay, that makes sense.
And your opinion on that price pool there, Raiken?
Yeah, so kind of depends on where you're at. I think if you're very focused on FM, then the Nova Storm's actually, again, like we did with the DNX, we tested the Nova Storm against the next level targets with that. So that's what I would say. Like, okay, you can definitely get that, and I know you'll be more or less successful in that, depending on the build. Like pending you know what you're doing with your build. But and I'll put that sticker on everything that I say. But if you need something more general, then Rhino's a good pick. And then Siege Battery 3, of course, like I'll continue to recommend Siege Battery. So.
I think it's a great prize pool, especially the tier 3 prize pool, because there's some there's great tech. You know, if you need a hull for your weeklies and whatnot, there's the Rhinos are in there, and with the Siege Battery now, you can really pick from whatever level of the game you're in now. Really, I feel some good and tier 4. Tier 4 is interesting. The Frostburn Interceptor at 6.5 million is amazing. That's the cheapest I think I've ever seen that hull.
Yep.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to sound really cheeky here, but I still think that the Frostburn should be cheaper because of how cheap the Rhino is. Does that make sense?
Well, no.
I mean, in like the Frostburn, I know it's still good, but it's not current. Is it going to stay?
It is current.
No, it's not. That was brought out ages ago.
Babe, the Frostburn Interceptor still has the highest thermal range that isn't like a super ship.
Well, I think the Rhino's better. Okay.
It has 90 thermal range, which is why it stays in my base card. Okay.
And this is why it's the price it is.
we just argue over BP all day long. That's our relationship, but that's good. That's good. No, but I think the Aegis as well is good in there for anyone that doesn't have the Harlock Aegis. And in fact, in some cases, the Harlock Aegis isn't always the first choice because you want to use a different flagship. So having the Aegis in the back of the fleet is sometimes a better choice for some fleets. So I personally don't have any Aegis, believe it or not. I'm just about to get one from the R&D, which is going to be my first one. So I may grab one of them.
Okay.
Raiken, any or Gadget, anything on that? Tier 4?
Yeah. So if you're going after the Revenge and the Gatling, then and you don't have strike warheads, I strongly recommend you pick up strike warheads because it gives that solid concussive damage that you're going to probably want.
Boost concussive damage by 45%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 55 at R15.
Exactly.
That's something I really overlooked.
Yeah. So that one's kind of like you should get that if you're doing the Revenge. Otherwise, I think like that particular batch is actually pretty solid. It kind of is very situational on what you have and don't have, right? I think Aegis is obviously a solid choice. Interceptor is a good choice. If you need like a mortar for your DNX or Nova Storm, if you're going that kind of route, then there's the Pandemonium in there. So you can pick that up too. So those are kind of like what I would kind of look at if I were kind of in that position. So.
Mm-hmm. It's a great prize pool. It's a great prize pool, tier 4. Gadget, did you have anything on tier 4 or?
No, nothing else really, mate.
Okay, no worries. Next one, Lucy.
This will be like Gadget's bit here, well, the hulls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you one hull. Oh no, that must be the next one then.
No, is it?
Yeah, there's a hull in the next one. But no, stay on this one.
I think that's a horrible price for a Punisher.
Yeah,
I think the top prize is 15 million, and a Punisher is only 2 million less. Is basically kind of shutting the door on any low level that doesn't have a sugar daddy.
Is that a dig at me?
And that's, and I think that's at the moment that's my go-to PvE hull. I have a build with Punishers that currently does every PvE task in the game. Do you know what I mean? And it's just one fleet, so it's extremely relevant to me, and I know a lot of people that missed it are wanting to get it, and I think that's a really high price to put on it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It is quite a high price, but I mean, it's still a good hull, and it is still a really current hull. That's probably why it's so expensive.
It's a very recent hull, and maybe the fact that maybe the fact that it can do every PvE thing in the game at a fairly low cost is why it's at that price.
But think, like, in my possession, see, this is time. Hullstore is like Christmas to me. Like, I get the chance to try and catch up and get everything that I've missed or couldn't get previously. And looking at it, I'm not going to get the Punisher, and I'm probably not going to get the new.
You'll get it. You'll get it.
No, but no, realistically, I won't. I need the Drak Carrier because they're amazing for base defense. Again, they're really current. There's loads of different things, and if you add all these prices up, they're extortionate, especially the Punisher.
Well, yeah, but maybe it's really easy. Maybe the raid's really, really easy.
Is it easy?
You'll be fine because you'll just sit there in the corner while I'm doing all the killing.
But what about people that don't have people to prep for them? That's what I'm meaning. People that don't have that helping hand in the game, that have to sit and grind and grind and grind for all these prizes that can't get them. That's what I'm saying.
Well, tier 5 is. I would say tier 5 is not even your mid-level bracket. Like I would feel that if you're hitting in tier 5, then you've kind of gone past that mid-level, unless you're in an alliance where people are helping you out. I mean, that's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm not happy that the Citadel's in there again. That's like every raid since it's come out, you know. But
yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So you know how I was saying, like, we are trying to make sure that, like, in the Foundry, for example, we have hulls that are built for certain things, right? And in the world, and that's what you want, right? The thing that we're doing with you know, kind of like the pick and choose prize and that sort of thing is we want to make sure that the ships and hulls and weapons, whatever, that are good for the event are continuously in that event cycle, right? It's always an option for people. So, like, if you missed one, you're not hosed on trying to get, like, a ship that will help you do well in future events, right? And by extension, the world targets when those drop in, right? So so that's why we keep repeating that particular hull, because we feel that the Citadel does perform well in the current event / new FM targets. So we keep putting that as an option for players to redeem.
But again, my point: the Citadel is even more current than the Punisher, because the Citadel came out after the Punisher, and it's for less points.
I don't know, guys. I mean, I definitely understand your gripe on the price of it, but I don't know. I kind of do understand the price of it a little as well, especially because I know for myself from having the Punishers, you know, I've got one tank in every fleet I own. I've got one tank in my Rhinos. I've got 2 tank in my Citadels. I've got another one tank in another fleet now. I've got another fleet that just one ship can do a level 80 mine on its own, level 90 mine. You know, you can build these and go and do your weeklies for next to nothing. You can do dub bases for nothing. And to have a hull that powerful and that versatile, I mean, that's the only hull you need. You know, in that whole list, you could just pick that one hull and do everything in the game. So they shouldn't give it away, really, to be fair. And if you think of it from that view as well.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it from the little guys, you know, after the rebalance and everything else, you know.
Well, after the rebalance...
This is the hull that's going to let them do all the PvE stuff that they need to be able to get the prizes as they're coming out to do the PvP stuff.
But bear in mind, after
a lot of guys won't be able to get the top prize here. They'll have to make a choice between one of these hulls and the top prize. Do you know what I mean?
But bear in mind, after the rebalance, like the deflection, the PvEs will be carrying deflection bypass as well. So you may just want resistance hulls anyway.
I don't know. It's debatable.
Isn't there another like my favourite prize pool? Yeah, this is the one. This is the one I want to see. The Phantom Tigershark. I'm so glad to see that in there again because I missed that the first time round.
It's just insane.
It's the reason I haven't built Tigers, and now is the reason I will build them. I'm really, really glad to see that. And I may take another Harlock Aegis, so it's good to see that. But they are high priced, but I understand why.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question though, Raiken, if you don't mind?
Sure, I can give any answer.
well, I'm just curious as to why the Gore Sabers in there, because I don't feel it's relevant. So I would only assume that, or at least take a slight guess at saying it may become more relevant soon.
Oh wow, Gore Sabers are coming back.
No, see, no, wait, that's what I'm asking.
I hope not, because I just scrapped mine.
Oh, hell yeah, they're like my best fleet.
So we, couple things. So one, we've never ever reoffered it, right? Like ever. So we were like, okay, look, this is an older hull. We want to definitely offer it, but we still think I see these things in like base defense all the time for like the stun resist and that sort of stuff, like the stun effect and that sort of thing. So so it's definitely like a solid base defense pending you have a strategy around how you're going to use it and that sort of thing, right? So I feel, that it's a combination of trophy / base defense kind of option, and the fact that we've never reoffered it before. So we wanted to make that available for those who are interested.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's I think this is a great prize list, and I think that the price of the hull and the weapon's great. And I'm glad to get a chance to get that Tigershark again. So for me, I'm a happy pirate at the moment. I know not everyone shares the same review as me, but I don't know. I'm just happy with that prize list. I know, Gadget, you're a bit annoyed about that Punisher. Lucy, you can get some catching up in there. So yeah, I mean it's going to be an interesting raid, and I'm definitely keen to see this preview tomorrow. See how this hull performs.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely going to take some getting used to and practice and skill, both on the making sure that the build's solid as well as like the tactical, like base hitting executionary part. So don't expect it to be like you feel like super powerful out the gate necessarily, at least against the higher bases, like the harder bases to crack. It will take you some time to get acclimated with the hull. So just be patient and practice and iterate, and you'll get there.
A lot of people are asking in the chat if you could quickly go over the Nemesis buff.
Oh, right.
I know we've gone a bit over, Raiken. Are you okay?
I definitely need to get rolling. I can give some high levels real quick. I can talk about the Mana more.
This is an awesome buff. This is a great buff, I think.
Yeah. So it was definitely something I was like, the proto-nim kind of sucks. We should buff it. And so basically, on a high level, it's an anti-sub. It's a sub-hunter, right? So it's like, here's a bunch of thermal, here's a bunch of sonar, here's the cavitation field, here's the frosty aura, so you can snag them, right? So it's really like meant to be like this powerhouse like, anti-sub thing. So like people who are using ghost crawlers or whatever, it kind of just straight up hard counters the ghost crawler, right? And then we have Mana War, which will deploy oil slicks, and that's to close gaps for things. So it's going to be good against something like the Hellstar, for example. And then the Hellstar will still be pretty good against the Protonym. And that's kind of like the light relationship, pending equal build and skill, et cetera, et cetera. That's the relationship.
So you got each sort of mega hull has a weakness to another.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's I like that. Okay, well, Raiken, I know we've kept you on long, and I'm sorry about that, and I really do appreciate you coming on the show, but it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and you've been so informative. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Not a problem, guys. It's been fun.
No problem. And thank you to all the viewers and people that have come out to watch the show tonight. I know it's been a bit of a longer one, but we've had some great information now from Raiken. And if there's any more questions in the show or that you guys want to know, feel free to post them in the page or add them onto the YouTube video here, and I'll comment and do my best to reply. Was there anything else anyone wanted to throw in the mix at all there, or shall I close the show there? No.
Happy pirating.
Happy part, and a big TFC thank you to GD Raiken. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone has a fantastic raid. If I do get into the preview tomorrow, I shall ask permission if I'm allowed to stream and maybe show you guys a little bit there. I'm not sure if that will be a thing or not. And if not, I'm sure I'll be streaming some of the raid anyway to give you guys a bit of a early look at how that raid's going to be. So I'll see you all on the Saturday show. And again, thanks Raiken, and thanks everyone for coming out.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.